Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is Alan, and there's way too much Star Wars content right now going on for me to just cover it on one channel, so we're bringing the Star Wars content from Generation Tech onto here on Generation Films. Now, if you guys haven't watched the first episode of the Mandalorian TV show yet, I recommend you guys click off of the video because there will be spoilers about that episode in this video. Fair warning. So at the end of Chapter 1, it's revealed that this secret bounty the Mandalorian has received is actually to terminate or retrieve a tiny baby in a most likely Scandinavian-designed floating baby carriage. And not just any baby, but what looks to be like a Baby Yoda. Now, if you're a diehard Star Wars fan, you know that this is a huge deal. Because as of now, we know almost nothing about Yoda species except for the fact that they are quite rare and can live quite long. The reveal of this little green baby has given us dozens of new questions, like who is this new Baby Yoda, and why is Werner Herzog, known simply as the Client, interested in it, and what's up with this creepy doctor, and what does this all have to do with the wider Star Wars storyline? Because, you know, as long as Dave Filoni keeps on creating Star Wars content and characters, he's gonna fight for his stuff to be connected with the larger galaxy. So in this episode, we're gonna dig out as much lore as possible and try to figure out exactly what the hell is going on and answer all of your questions. So first, how random is it for Werner Herzog, known more for his directing than his acting, to be cast in the role of the Client? And how perfect that voice was clearly made to play a villain. But what is going on? Who is this Client? Well, from what we can tell, he seems to be some kind of Imperial official or maybe agent. He's wearing a large Imperial medal across his chest, which seems like a commendation more than a signifier of rank. The Imperial military had all sorts of medals, like the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Medal of Imperial Honor, which is better, I guess, and then there were civilian honors, too, for civilians of the Empire that performed very brave actions for the Emperor. Other than that medal on Herzog, he has no other identifiers on him. He's wearing civvies and a fur-lined leather coat, which is actually very Gestapo-esque. More interesting, perhaps, is the sad state of the armor of the 4 stormtroopers who are guarding him. The dirt that has accumulated on their shiny white plastoid armor looks like the result of months, if not years, of neglect and lack of maintenance. It's not really something you would see the Emperor's finest wear, at least prior to the Battle of Endor. Now, according to Star Wars, The Mandalorian takes place after the Battle of Endor, where the Emperor died. In my opinion, it probably takes place even later, after the Battle of Jakku. The reason I think this is because of this earlier scene. In the cantina, Greef Karga tries to pay the Mandalorian in Imperial credits. The bounty hunter refuses, claiming that the Empire was gone. He then proceeds to take half payment in Mon Calamari flan, which looks like the most delicious currency in the galaxy. The Battle of Endor was the beginning of the end and start of the Imperial collapse, but at the time it still wasn't really certain that the rebellion was going to win. Although they had some momentum on their side, the Imperial military was several hundreds if not thousands of times bigger, and the majority of the galaxy, including Coruscant, the economic center, was still under Imperial control. So yeah, the galactic credit probably was still a very viable currency at the time. Mandalorian bounty hunters are practical individuals, and no matter what their political ideology is, they aren't going to refuse credits that are worth something. So clearly by the time of the show, those credits are worth basically nothing. But even in the opening hours of the Battle of Jakku, it still looked like the Empire could turn itself around and take out the New Republic. But their defeat on that desert planet marked the last great gathering of Imperial forces and the true end to their presence in the galaxy. The Galactic Concordance Treaty was signed shortly after, signaling an end to the Galactic Civil War. Now, after saying all of this, I took a quick look on Wikipedia and does seem to claim that the TV show takes place in 9 ABY, which is even later than we assumed. I'm not really sure if this is true or not. This is important though, because after the Battle of Jakku, Palpatine's contingency plan kind of kicks off into the next stage. During the turbulent time after the death of Palpatine, the Empire was in a disarray, but Palpatine had left behind several droids with his face on it to act as messengers to carry out his last will and testament, the contingency plan. This was a multi-pronged strategy designed to destroy the Empire and most of the Imperial military in an effort to weed out the weakest in their ranks. As a matter of fact, many of the New Republic's victories between the Battle of Endor till the Battle of Jakku were a result of this contingency plan, which was carried out by secret operatives. By the time the Battle of Jakku was over, all of the most loyal and capable Imperial officers were together and ready to journey into the unknown region of the galaxy, where the Imperial remnant would eventually form into the First Order. Now, there is the possibility that Emperor Palpatine's contingency plan had certain individuals like Werner Herzog's character stay behind. From what we can tell by his medal and his parting words to the Mandalorians about a return to order, this is a man who still believes in Imperial rule and wants to bring it back. I mean, why else would you travel around with stormtroopers 4 years after the Empire ended? And this guy is probably an Imperial fanatic, if you ask me, and not just someone looking to make some quick money. Then there's the skittish Dr. Persing, who is also unknown. He clearly is very enthusiastic about meeting the Mandalorian's bounty, and also clearly wants to see it return alive. Herzog, on the other hand, doesn't really care as much and will settle for the termination of the Baby Yoda for half the fee, of course, which is also the contract that IG-11 gets. This means that Herzog does see some value in the Baby Yoda. Maybe he wants Persing to do some experiments on it. But at the same time, he's willing to have it killed, which means that what these Imperials ultimately want is to control Baby Yoda and not allow it to fall into enemy hands. Now, this is a pretty strange bounty for a lot of reasons. Usually, clients don't like to meet the bounty hunters face to face. They usually will provide all of the information about the target on a bounty puck, which is sort of like a small holographic info pad. And also a chain code. Now, we're not really sure exactly what a chain code is, but the client does give the bounty hunter the last 4 digits of the Baby Yoda's chain code, which reveals his age. 50 years. Now, maybe the chain code is something like Social Security or some kind of identification number for the citizens in the galaxy. Who knows? The other thing that the Mandalorian is given is a tracking fob, which can show the direction of the target. Usually these kinds of devices only work if a transmitter of some sort is already placed at the target location, which tells us that it's very possible that the Empire, or at least Herzog's faction, has had some contact with this little baby before. Perhaps that's why Dr. Pershing is so adamant that the Yoda baby is not killed. Maybe he already knows Baby Yoda and has some kind of relationship with it. Now, Dr. Pershing has not yet shown his motives or his moral compass. He could be a good guy, bad guy, he could just be there for the science, or maybe he does really care about the Baby Yoda, but rest assured, he's an important figure in this TV show, and I'm pretty sure he'll eventually make his way onto the Mandalorian ship and maybe become a part of his entourage. Because that ship feels really empty right now, and he's gonna really need to KOTOR the hell out of this TV show, in my opinion. And not just with dudes in carbonite, those aren't friends, those are wall ornaments. The client also seems to know Grief Karla of the Bounty Hunting Guild pretty well. During the reign of the Galactic Empire, Imperial agents oftentimes used the Bounty Hunting Guild for tasks that the Imperial military or ISB were not suited for. So maybe the client's former occupation was as an Imperial agent in the intelligence service, which actually makes a lot of sense now, because these are exactly the type of people who would be involved in the contingency plan. Now, if the Yoda baby is 50 years old, and by the time of the TV show it's 9 ABY, that would mean that the Yoda baby was born somewhere around 41 years before the Battle of Yavin. This would have been around 10 years before Qui-Gon Jinn brought Anakin Skywalker to the Jedi Temple. And during this time, there were only 2 known members of Yoda's species. There was Yoda, and then the lesser-known female version of Yoda, Yaddle. She also sat on the High Jedi Council for some time and possessed some very powerful and unique Force powers as well, something that could possibly be a part of the species' DNA, which means that Baby Yoda might also be Force sensitive. That could be a repulsor lift in his baby carriage, or maybe it's just Baby Yoda's insane levitation skills. Now, there could be more of Yoda's species out there, but as far as we know, they were extremely rare, and not even Yoda's closest friends and fellow masters knew what he was or have seen any other members of his species. Yoda also didn't always follow the rules. He wanted everyone else to, but he always pushed the boundaries of what was right or wrong, as did Yaddle, who was also allowed to use several Force powers that were considered borderline dark side powers. One of these powers is known as Morikro, and it basically slowed down an individual's body function to the point where they basically just pass away. So I think it could be highly likely that this little green baby is the result of Yoda and Yaddle getting it on, or at least it's the result of something created from Yoda and Yaddle's DNA. I mean, Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious did love cloning things after all. Then let's look at Lucasfilms and George Lucas's very strange and strict policy of never delving into what Yoda's species is. A line in The Revenge of the Sith was actually cut because it was going to mention Yoda's species. And this was kind of odd because during the crazy expanded universe period before Disney took over, you had creators writing all sorts of crazy stories about zombies, stormtroopers, and extragalactic invaders. But still, for some reason, Lucasfilm actively discouraged any of its new creators from actually mentioning or even delving into what Yoda species was. So maybe there is a master plan, some big reveal about Yoda's species that will make him more than just an old Jedi, but perhaps as some entity that has a profound relationship with the Force and a larger role to play in the galaxy. Lucasfilm not only denies any further exploration of Yoda's species, it also denies the fact that there are an entire race of Yoda's creatures. They might be a very limited group of individuals. It's almost as if he and Yaddle were alone in the galaxy, sort of like the Force gods known as the Celestials. And strangely enough, these little green guys seem to be a permanent presence in the Jedi Council. Even during the time of Revan, there was a Yoda-like master in charge. Then there's the question of why this Baby Yoda is being held captive by a bunch of weequay, who are most likely pirates or bandits. Did they capture Baby Yoda, and what do they hope to gain from holding on to this alien? Clearly, several groups of bounty hunters have already attacked them, trying to gain access to the baby, so it's clearly something that takes a lot of resources to keep. And also, the client seems to be willing to pay a lot for the retrieval of this, so why don't the weequay just take the ransom from the Imperials? Since when did weequays make ideological stands and reject good payouts? It's just not like them. Then there's the even more important question, is Palpatine and his potential resurrection somehow related to this baby? The client clearly sees this bounty as a part of returning the Empire to its former glory. Or perhaps he just wants to keep it out of the hands of Luke Skywalker and his new order of Jedi. The last thing the Imperial Remnant really needs is enemy number one running around with a Yoda disciple. It seems like for now, the Mandalorian is going to keep the Baby Yoda alive and return the high-priced asset back to his client. But the Mandalorian's own history as a foundling and his moral compass might make it pretty hard for him to let go of the baby. I, for one, wouldn't mind seeing this badass Mandalorian taking on one of the most difficult jobs in the galaxy, parenthood, and then training this Yoda to one day wear Mandalorian armor and see that Yoda baby take on Emperor Palpatine. Well, the resurrected version of Emperor Palpatine. Who knows what's going to happen? But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, guys, my name is Alan, reminding you that life is a movie, and you are the protagonist.